Hello, and welcome to Fighting Over the VCR. My name is Nancy.
And I'm Matthew. And joining us this week is podcast fan Sherry. Say hello.
Hello.
This week we're covering two more of our scary movies. I'm going to talk about Carrie later in the show, but Matt's going to get us started with a discussion about Alien.
All right. So, both of the movies this week were picked by our fan Sherry, who October is one of her favorite months, also because it's her birthday month. So everyone tell her happy birthday. And Alien is not just a movie that Sherry really likes, I really like, but this is also a movie that is brand new to Nancy, just like Halloween.
Yep.
So, quick little fun story. Alien came out in 1979, and it is the 40th anniversary. To commemorate the 40th anniversary and to give Nancy an opportunity to see it, we did our rewatch in the theater for a special viewing of Alien. And for me, this was the first time I'd ever watched it in the theater, Sherry.
Me too.
And Nancy had never seen it before.
Yeah.
Really quickly, you know, let's just talk about the experience of seeing it in the theater versus watching it at home. Now, Nancy, you never watched it at home. Mm-hmm. But, like, for me, it was really fun to kind of, like, every time I had watched it, I watched it on TV or on video or something like that. So you could always, like, pause it, or if there was a part that you were not, like, it got slow or something like that where you felt like it got slow, you know, at home you can always distract yourself or, you know, go to the bathroom or you're eating something that you made or whatever. But this was, like, the first time I sat and I, like, really focused on this movie, which I thought was a really cool experience. Did you have the same experience?
Yeah, I did.
I think that just even heightened my appreciation even more. That I love this movie. I love a lot of things about it. I think the first time I ever saw it was probably, I'd always heard about it, but I think the first time I actually sat and watched it all the way through, I was probably like early high school. And a lot of that had to do with, it really inspired me in a lot of ways because I really liked the look of it. And
What's the name of the artist?
The artist is H.R. Giger, who did a lot of the designs for the Alien, for a lot of the sets, for all the stuff in it, the eggs, all these different things that are happening in this movie. You know, so I've always kind of been on the lore about. So it's had comic books made after it. I've read some of the comics. I've seen all the sequels, and I've just really appreciated it. But Sherry, so when did you first see this movie?
I did not see it until we were living together, because I hadn't seen it yet. Even though, like, I knew about it, I had just never sat and watched it. So I want to say, like, maybe 10 years ago?
So
maybe a little over.
So you're saying that I blessed you with the enjoyment of watching this movie?
Yeah, I knew about the artwork and all that stuff, but I didn't know that much about it. It's now in my top 5 all-time movies. I love this movie.
Do you think you saw it before you got an orange and white striped cat?
No, I think I had the cat. I had the cat first because I remember watching it and telling Matt if I would have seen this before we got Indy, that his name probably would have been Jonesy. However, I can call him Jonesy if I want, since he really is Indiana Jones.
There you go.
It works both ways.
That's right.
I know.
I like that. There's another. I have another story that we will be referring to Podcat as well, but we'll get to that later. So this movie came out in 1979.
So did we.
Yeah, so did we. And it was directed by Ridley Scott, and it had the tagline in it, in space, no one can hear you scream.
Yeah.
Which, one thing I want to mention is, you know, we're talking about scary movies this month. And this is a scary movie, but it's not your traditional, like, Halloween movie. It's kind of a suspenseful sci-fi movie. Mm-hmm. And some people might not even consider it, you know, a movie to watch this time of year because it doesn't have, like, fall or witches or, like, you know, traditional kinds of, like, Halloween kind of stuff.
But it does still have, like, that haunted house feel, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it does,
it
because
does. 'Cause
ultimately
they're
they're all
trapped
trapped on a ship and they're being stalked by this
Right.
by the alien. And so I definitely would classify this as like a movie that, you know, they might not be having carved pumpkins anywhere, or you know, it's not your traditional slasher movie, but it's definitely, I would say, like probably one of the top 10 scary movies of all time when it comes to suspense. In a similar way that like Halloween is suspenseful, where there's someone stalking them and they can't, and it like lurks in the shadows. It's the same kind of thing, I think, with this movie. So, basic rundown of the plot of this movie is there are 7 passengers on the ship, the Nostromo, and they work for the company. And they just call it the company. They don't give it a name or anything. Eventually, in the sequels, they give it a name, which hopefully Nancy will eventually hear if she ever watches the sequels.
I'll definitely watch the second one.
Yeah, Aliens is very good. I think you'd like it a lot.
And they're all in their their hyper sleep kind of thing, in their sleeping pods, and they all get woken up early to a distress signal on a planet that they have to go and investigate. And these are all like cargo kind of workers. They're not really explorers or anything like that. It's not Star Trek.
It's a commercial ship.
It's a commercial
not
ship.
a rescue
It's like
ship.
200 million pounds of ore they're bringing back, or something.
Yeah, they
like
went
that.
to some planet and mined a bunch of stuff that the company is asking them to get, and they go.
Utah.
So they go to this planet, and I'm going to go off a tangent right here. They discover this orphaned alien that they decide to bring on their ship and try and take care of. And it just wants a home. That's all it wants. But no, actually, that's not what happens.
It just wants someone to hug.
That's right. It wants someone to hug. It just wants, it just wants to feel their heartbeat.
Oh, God.
Did you know they made that face hugger out of shellfish? Shocker. Like 4 oysters and like a sheep's like stomach or something.
Ugh.
Right? That's why it looks so organic and real, because it is.
It's amazing. The
I
face
know.
hugger's amazing.
I know.
The face hugger's one of the creepiest things ever made on television.
I agree.
In film, just because of like, as far as how widely known it is. There's been some creepy stuff made in horror movies over the years, from the inception of film. But this is probably like the most popular creepy thing is the face hugger.
Yeah. Well, just the fact that they didn't know what it was, and that it, brought John Hurt into an immediate coma, and then trying to remove it. They barely pierced it, and acid blood decides to seep out of it. And
did you know about the acid blood at all?
No. Okay, so you guys, before we get too far into this, I'll just tell you, I knew very little about this movie. I knew 3 basic things about this movie. Sigourney Weaver was in it, John Hurt was in it, and an alien burst out of his stomach, and there was a cat. That's about all I knew about this movie.
Because I told you about the cat, or did you know about it before?
Either you had told me or I'd heard about it somewhere, but I didn't know Ridley Scott directed it, or I just had never put it together that he had. I didn't know Harry Dean Stanton was in it. I didn't know Veronica Cartwright was in it. I didn't know Hot Tom Skerritt was in it.
What are you talking about?
Beard.
It's the only movie that Tom Skerritt's been attractive in, as far as I'm concerned. It was as big of a surprise to me as it was to anybody.
He's cute.
But no, I knew nothing about this movie, and I was thrilled. I mean, I keep telling them, like, I'd gone to Disney World in 1994, and we were on a ride in the MGM Hollywood part of the park. And there is a part where, an alien descends down upon you. So, I mean, I've seen what the alien looks like, how it has the little head that kind of pops out of the mouth. Like, I was aware of that, but I really knew nothing about this movie. And I was glad. I was thrilled to not know anything about this movie.
It was fun watching you watch some of the parts when I'd turn and kind of look at you and stuff would happen.
Well, I'm glad that we saw it in a theater because so much of this movie is about the baby alien running around the ship and hiding. If I'd watched it at my house, I would have just been imagining the alien was under my bed or hiding behind a curtain or tucked away in a corner somewhere. You know, if like the door was closed a little bit, I would have just pictured it behind there. So I'm glad I saw it in the theater before seeing it at home, just because I think I would have been more scared watching it at home.
Especially like with the scene when, after it has, the facehugger's been on John Hurt, and it's, then they can't, then it like all of a sudden disappears and it's not on him anymore. He's still kind of in a coma, but it's not on him anymore, and they're looking around for it. And then it's just kind of dead there.
The tail falls down.
And they're like, what the hell? And yeah, I mean, I imagine like you not wanting to, like, if you're watching it on your bed, not wanting to put your feet down on the ground.
Yeah,
if you're watching it at home.
My imagination would have gone to way more crazy places if I was at home alone watching this versus being in a theater. Yeah. I mean, nothing was going to happen in the theater.
Well, and another thing that,
which again, I know sounds really ridiculous to people who have no problem watching scary movies, but as we've discussed this whole month, this in itself has been a challenge for me, watching movies that, are on the scarier side. Well,
I think that though, even though you say that, people aren't going to, a lot of people who watch scary movies frequently, that's why they watch them. Mm-hmm. A lot of people watch them for that like adrenaline rush of being scared. And then there's other people who just like get off on blood, guts, gore, and tits. But
I can tell you that, which wasn't a surprise to me, but even though I've seen this multiple times, I still was just totally freaked out watching it in the theater. And in fact, at my favorite scene, which is when she's trying to get off the ship and go to the pod, I actually started tearing up because I was just felt so much in fear. I could feel her fear.
That whole end of the movie is really intense. Mm-hmm. She's trying to get off of the Nostromo through the escape pod, and there's no music. You have a siren blaring.
That's why it's so great.
It's really dark. You've got steam going everywhere. A lot of it is done in one shot where she's running down hallways. I mean,
it's spectacular.
They really make that ending really intense.
Yeah.
And that's frequent throughout the entire movie. I mean, there's not a lot of background music to really hype, but except in those moments to increase the intensity. And
I guess he did all the handheld camera work all himself. Ridley did.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
so he could get the shot just how he wanted it. The a couple other things that I'd like to mention about the alien itself. So they knew that they were going to have a lot of close-up shots, but they also wanted to show the full alien, so they knew they couldn't make it a puppet. So they made a suit. They found this 7-foot tall African man who was very skinny.
Balaji Badejo, I looked up his name.
Who could fit into this suit, which also makes it so kind of creepy real, because number one, it's skin tight on him, so it doesn't seem like a costume because it's so perfectly fit, as opposed to someone else wearing a costume where it might seem like you'd see wrinkles when his elbow bent or something like that. This is such a perfectly made outfit for this alien. And then just the design of the alien is creepy. It's got 6 symmetrical fingers. So if you look at its hand, all the digits are the same. Half of it are one way and the other half is just symmetrical the other. And it's 6 of them.
Do you know who they originally wanted to wear that suit?
No.
Take a guess. Who's your other favorite person that wears a suit that's tall?
Chewbacca?
Peter Mayhew.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. That would be interesting, but I don't know.
That was his idea. That was their idea.
They were thinking.
I don't think they ever asked him.
So it's they were thinking we would like a Chewbacca-esque kind of thing, exactly. Where someone is wearing a suit. Yeah. Maybe not him specifically, but man, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But just the look and the design. Now, there's something that they don't really do in this movie, but you see a lot in the sequels, where like the tail is like a weapon. It's got like a pointy tail that like it uses like a spear, and it kind of does it in this movie when it gets is it Veronica Cartwright? Her character's name is Lambert, and she just screams and cries the whole movie. She's probably my least favorite character.
Apparently, real quick, I was looking at, and Ridley Scott and they wrote all these, or maybe it was Ridley too, but they wrote all these very detailed backstories for all the characters. And for her, like, I guess she had been born male, like hermaphrodite, and but they decided to have her female or something like that. And then she also had all this like horrible anxiety disorder, I guess. That's why she's like upset all the time.
Wow.
I don't know. It was really.
I thought she was upset because Tom Skerritt was killed early.
Probably too.
Because I am convinced he was banging one of them. He was banging either Ripley or her or both.
Probably Ripley. It was just. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, anyway, when the alien finally gets Lambert, he kind of uses the tail to kind of spear her in the back.
Yeah.
But you don't see it.
And that's right before or after he'd already killed the other mechanic.
I think he got the mechanic first. He
can't remember
picked him
his
up,
name.
and then she was screaming and crying when she does that. I mean, I'm sure her lines were like before every line, it was like said hysterically, said hysterically, said hysterically.
I think she gets killed before Parker.
No,
maybe it's
Parker's
switched the other way.
first.
Yeah.
But anyway,
It's real close together.
And then the other interesting thing about the alien is it has like inside its mouth another mouth. Like it's its tongue that is also a mouth that like
messed up.
shoots out and like paralyzes the person before it takes it away and does whatever it's going to do with it. Funny story. So Sherry watched this movie for the first time, and Podcat over here likes to how all of our listeners know how vocal he can be from time to time. I remember like being like laying down in bed and seeing Mulder next to me and just having this vision right after we had watched Alien Sherry watched it for the first time, having like him meowing at me, but when he meow, his mouth would open up and then a little like Mulder head would come out of his mouth and meow at me too.
So much meow.
Were they still kittens when you first watched it?
They were still pretty. They were pretty young.
Yeah.
So imagine like cat mouth opening, little head coming out of cat mouth, and that's the one that meows in my face. So yeah,
that's pretty funny.
Mulder. So if we're looking at the characters in this movie, you've got Dallas, who's the captain, played by Tom Skerritt. Ripley, who is the second in command, played by Sigourney Weaver, and this is the movie. This movie like launched her.
Was she second in command, or was John Hurt was second in command?
Yeah. Dallas and Kane
because she argues with Ian Holmes, saying, when they're both outside of the ship, I'm in charge.
I thought
I was reading today.
She's third.
She's third.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have John Hurt, who is number 2, and he's kind of the pilot. He flies the ship. Hysterical Lambert.
Lambert.
You have Ian Holm, who's the science officer, who we will get to in a bit. And then you have the 2 mechanics, Parker, who I can never pronounce his name.
I think it's Yaphet Kodo, maybe? Yaphet? Something like that, yeah.
And the wonderful Harry Dean Stanton, who
still doing blue collar work.
Still doing blue collar work,
pretty in pink. He's trying to get a blue collar job.
Yeah, he
had a great gig on this ship. Although they were always upset their bonus structure was never the same as everyone else's.
Well, so all of them work for the company, which brings up an interesting kind of theme in this movie about how, yes, they're being terrorized by this alien, but I think that there's like a workers' rights. Like this is almost like a union kind of movie.
Yeah,
where they aren't even supposed to be out there, but it's the law that if there's a beacon, they have to go see it. Totally understand that, but it brings up the idea of rules, and one of the rules that if they obey this rule, this movie ends immediately, is Dallas and John Hurt and Lambert go out to investigate the beacon. John Hurt has, whose name in the movie is Kane.
Yeah.
He comes back with the alien on him, and they're in the airlock, and Ripley's like, I can't let you in. That's violating quarantine procedure.
Yep, 24 hours. You got to suck it up.
To which the first time when I watched this, I remember yelling at the screen like, no, don't let him in. As like somebody like for quarantine, like science, a lover of science, rules, like, no. I mean, I knew something was going to happen because otherwise there wouldn't have been a movie, but I'm like, ugh.
Continuing the theme of this month, where when you have movies like this, you have to have dumb people in it.
Yeah.
And that was pretty dumb.
It was very believable, though, because when people panic, and they do, as they do in situations like that, I mean, that's why, it's...
Well, and, not to just stick up for Tom Skerritt, but the fact that he saw that his crewmate...
Sure, of course.
...was likely going to die. Something very strange had happened, and he was going to die. Now, my problem with the first 20 minutes of the movie, when they're exploring the... this alien distress call or whatever, he's descending into this like cavern area, and then he gets to this area where he looks upon a field of eggs, and he calls them eggs, and he says, these look like eggs, and he has a little headlamp on, and he's like flashing it around, and he sees that, there's some organic matter in here, it's swimming around in here. Why are you hanging out? Why are you sticking around?
Why aren't you telling Dallas?
Getting up immediately. Like, why do you want to stay in that spot? I mean, not that he deserved to have the alien burst through and attach itself to his face, but oh my God. That was probably the dumbest thing that happened in the whole movie.
I think that...
the part... I was going to say, do you remember the blue light above the eggs in the movie when you saw it in the theater?
Yeah.
That blue laser light was actually borrowed from The Who. They were next door in, practicing or film, whatever, for a tour or something, and they borrowed that laser from them. That's how they got that blue light.
Oh, to the film studio?
They actually, from what I understand, Ridley Scott actually went up to them and started talking to the lighting guy for The Who.
Yeah.
And a lot of the lighting throughout the whole movie
so more than just that, which is cool.
They got help with that.
There's a lot of strobe in this movie, right?
In certain areas, it's more like, I don't know if it's strobe or if it's like there's a light behind a fan and like...
Well, flashing.
And it starts flashing. That's near the end. And again, increasing the intensity.
Yeah, that was dumb, though. I don't know what was going on there. Then he's like, let me look over this egg. What is this thing? Again, actual organic material. It was like sheep intestines or something. Blah. Ugh. Those things are like one of the grossest things ever.
They're awesome.
Oh, I know they are. But, oh, God.
They're awesome. The look of everything in this movie. Even the ship, like, the basics of the ship, like, the whole art direction in this movie, I really like. The eggs, as weird as they look, the whole like how it's got like this weird opening that like kind of comes out,
it kind of flowers
open, and the long tail of the face hugger wraps itself around your neck to put its little suck onto your mouth.
But it's just done so well because when you're doing these movies, especially like post Star Wars, like 2001, it's like you gotta people really make them feel like something they have not seen before, and it does.
Well, and the part where when Ripley and Ash are fighting over do we let him in or not, and she's like absolutely not, and then he goes ahead and just does it. Then you see you don't see them carrying Kane in. You see Kane for the next scene laying on the table with the face hugger on. That's the first time you see that his entire face has been covered with
melted into the mask. Yeah.
With this, so you're at that point. Since again, I'd never seen it before. I'm just assuming that he still has some kind of problem with his suit.
Yeah.
But nope. This starfish has glued itself to his face.
What was your feeling when they cracked that thing open and that was sitting there?
Like for the first time.
How did you feel?
Like,
Like,
were
what
you
did you
like,
think?
was it like...
Had you seen a facehugger before?
No, that was new. Again, I knew very little about this
Good.
movie. No one had ever forced me to watch it before, and not to say I'm feeling forced with this
no.
experience, but I never had anyone be like, oh my god, it's like my favorite movie in the world, you gotta watch it, and force me to like sit down and watch it. It's just, I just never made a point to get around to it, but I'm glad I did.
Let's talk a little bit about probably like the star of this movie, Sigourney Weaver.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
After this movie, she went on to, do a lot of great films.
She owned the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, Ghostbusters, Working Girl,
Spectacular.
And then
More alien movies.
More alien movies. She basically continued on this franchise for a while. She had a really tough job in this movie, and I think this will end up being kind of a theme for the evening, and for this episode. She, at this time, for a movie like this, coming out in a studio with an ensemble like this, her being such a strong, positive woman in this movie that is ultimately the hero. I mean, you can kind of put her, along the lines of a lot of the movies that we've watched this month, with this whole kind of victimized woman being chased by some killer, like Laurie Strode or Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street. But from the very beginning of this movie, she is in charge.
She's a fucking badass is what she is.
She is in charge. And which is really interesting because one of the things that in my research, like, they tried to write all the characters in this movie like they were genderless. Like, you didn't have to, like, they could have gotten anyone to be there. But I do not see this movie succeeding with it not cast the way it is.
Yeah. And Meryl Streep played that part, or they thought about her, but they liked Weaver better, which was great, but I can't imagine Meryl Streep. I love Meryl Streep, but
So this was probably filmed in like late 77, 78 sometime, if it came out in 79. Yeah. Have there been any female astronauts at that point?
No. I don't
well,
think so.
Sally Ride, what year was Sally Ride?
Because I'm wondering, too, if, like, just the deliberate
I think
having women in space.
She was right around that time.
You had women in space in Star Trek
and
in Star Wars, because Princess Leia was already in space. So, but
she just needed to be rescued.
And in a lot of ways, Princess Leia was tough, and that was in 77. Having her character in there, but having someone in charge of something like this, and really kind of carrying the whole movie, in a lot of ways, was really unprecedented at that time.
Yeah, for 79, I mean, there's like, you have more than one woman on staff. She's one of the people in charge. There's, one of the people of color is one of the last people that's alive in the movie, which is, and the women, which I think is awesome. And it's one of the movies that passes a Bechdel test, which is interesting because there's only 2 women on the cast, but at one point, when they're talking about the alien, the alien is sexless, so it's kind of interesting if you think about it that way.
Can you explain to our listeners what the Bechdel test is?
Well, basically, I forget how many lines it is. I think it's really any lines where 2 women are having a conversation in a film, or and they're not talking about a man,
like in a relationships kind of world, or at all.
So, like the TV show Mad Men probably never passed that test.
Never,
because women's values were always centered around how men valued them, kind of thing. Very few things pass this.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to get
I mean, maybe Orange is the New Black passes it because it's a prison full of women, but
it does.
There's not a whole lot of other examples I mean, you'd think there would be a lot more by now, but
now if your theory that Tom Skerritt was actually banging one of these women
or both,
of course,
still can pass the test. That isn't part of it.
And I'll argue that Veronica Cartwright's character seemed more upset with him dying, although maybe she was just a more emotional. I mean,
she was upset.
Ripley was upset, but I think she was also more like, "Holy shit, what do we do now?"
The captain is gone. Well,
and maybe a little bit of "I told you so."
Yeah, I mean, because at that point, Kane had already been killed, and then Dallas died. Because then, when did Harry Dean Stanton die before?
First.
He died before Dallas.
He died after Kane.
After Kane.
Okay.
It goes Kane, Harry Dean Stanton,
Dallas,
then
Robot,
then Ash,
It's okay.
then Ash, then Parker, Lambert,
and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so as Nancy was alluding to, there's a huge reveal near the end where you find out that Ash, the science officer, had been told the entire time that the company was basically saying, we think there's an alien there, capture this alien, and everyone else in the crew is expendable as long as you bring this alien life form back so they can use it to make weapons.
Yeah, they have to type a special code to get into this room that's full of white lit bright lights that are randomly blinking and make it look like it's like the nerve center of this, nerve center communication center of this ship.
The computer system is called Mother.
But it's actually spelled, which I did not know until today, MU/TH/UR. Isn't that interesting?
Weird.
I
didn't know that.
That'd be interesting to figure out exactly what that acronym means.
Right.
Yeah, this whole robot thing, because what was so good about the reveal of Ash being a robot with this malicious goal was that it's not just that there's one villain in this movie.
No.
I mean, because you're thinking like these men that won't listen to Ripley, they in themselves are not villainous, but they're stupid, but they're also causing more problems because they're not following her lead or listening to her ideas or whatnot. But no, there is actually someone on the ship who's sabotaging them.
Right.
So they are not just trying to fight this incredibly deadly alien that can kill you in like a second, but they're also fighting this robot who's been given all these instructions. Oh no, we need to keep this organic life form alive so we can bring it back.
Well,
intense.
Okay, so
and that's what's so great is that she's the one, like the at the part where I was going to say when he comes in with the facehugger, they're the ones that are all emotional. She's the woman is the one that's like, no, like you need to like do this. But anyway,
you're right. That was one of the strongest moments for Sigourney Weaver, where she was really kind of taking charge. And then the scene when they're deciding when they're trying to decide what to do after Dallas gets taken by the alien, when she's just like yelling at Parker like, hey, shut up.
Yeah.
And just really taking charge. That's one of the best. One of the strong moments for her in the movie too.
When Dallas had his scene, which was basically the exact same scene that John McClane had when John McClane was using his lighter in an air duct, but the air duct in the ship was a little bit bigger, and he had a freaking lighter, like a big torch that he was lighting. But
come to our planet, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
Yeah, same concept. Like, the first thing I was like, oh my god, it's just like John McClane. I don't know who's scarier, the terrorist or the alien. I don't know.
Well, what I was gonna say is, you can watch this movie and think like the alien is like this villain that's trying to kill all these people for whatever reason because it's an alien, but really, that's in the alien's nature. The real villain in this movie is the company. Yeah. The company is the villain. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who, are put them in this science experiment. The alien's just doing its thing. And again, it's just a little orphan taken from this planet. I just think that the whole thing with the company is, it's not like whatever inspired the idea that the company wanted this. Hats off to the writers of this movie for coming up with that idea, because I think it would be so simple to just say like, oh, we're dumb and we mistakenly brought this alien on board, to twist it near the end of the movie to be like, oh no, the people that you work for wanted this to happen. That's more messed up than anything this alien does.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have watched it so many more times than I have, but I mean, I can't help but think that even the distress call was planted. Like, this whole thing was maybe set up so that they would land there. I mean, could the mother intelligence thing had known that they were nearing this planet that had some organic life forms on it that could have been very dangerous, and just deliberately sent them there to their deaths.
Excellent segue, Nancy. Which brings us to sequels. This movie not only has 3 sequels: Aliens, which came out almost 10 years later, then directed by James Cameron. Very different feel. Sigourney Weaver comes back, and there are aliens.
Okay.
Alien 3, directed by David Fincher.
His first feature film.
Which is controversial among fans of the franchise, but I still find, pretty good.
When you watch it, you'll know why. After you watch Aliens.
And then there's Alien 4, which I will only call Alien 4 because I don't want to give anything away to Nancy. She can IMDb the actual name of it.
Nope.
And then that is where our Sigourney Weaver storyline ends. And then in the 2000s, Ridley Scott came back and made 2 movies. He made a movie called Prometheus, which was supposed to be a prequel to it. And then another movie, Alien Covenant, which was also a second part of the prequel. All taking place before Alien.
Oh, okay.
So when you bring up the idea of, like, maybe they knew, like, that beacon was fake, kind of the lore that they've created in this whole series has this idea of, like, oh, wait, we knew about aliens already.
Oh, okay.
So it is very possible that they were going to that planet on purpose.
Well, at one point, she does say, "This wasn't a distress call. This doesn't look like a distress call." Somebody else says.
Well,
that.
yeah. I mean, it's a warning that's
It's
basically saying, "Do not come here."
Right.
Yeah.
And they go down to the planet anyway, probably because they are just being dumb.
When they get out, that's because they get out because they think they need to. But the system, like, it direct. I mean, they're in hypersleep. Like, it does it. They don't get a choice. It starts going. It's wakes them up. Yeah.
As far as the sequels go, they're all very entertaining. And if you like the look and the feel of of the first movie, you get more of that throughout the other movies in some way. I still think that this movie is, like a lot of series of movies, this one is the strongest. Particularly because you've got a small cast in a small kind of, like you said, haunted house kind of torture situation.
Yeah, the time frame of this movie can't go like 2 days,
if that. I mean, everything could happen almost overnight, but
yeah.
I mean, they had to do the repairs to the ship, and they tell them, Harry Dean Stanton goes, we're looking at like 17 hours, and Parker's like, we got at least 25 hours. Whatever he can do to increase his paycheck, right? It's got a lot of interesting kinds of things that happen as far as, like, as the sequels go on, how they build onto the story, which they do that in all the. If they want to make a series of something, they got to build on the story somehow. So and sometimes they make good choices, and sometimes they make bad choices. So anyway,
the part where Ash rolls up the magazine and just tries to
kill her.
Yeah, I guess in the script or something it said that Ash is supposed to put a magazine in her hooter, and Sigourney Weaver, and because it was British, like written like a British person because a hooter isn't mouth, and Sigourney Weaver was like, that doesn't make sense. He's gonna put a magazine in my boob, like what? I just found that very funny.
Death by paper cuts,
right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I always thought that was like a weird way. Like he was like trying to like get it into her mouth, but it never like when you're watching
it's so awkward.
It's never really going into her mouth. It's just like, can I cover your mouth? And like
that's a weird robot.
He's the worst.
He's awful.
There is, I'll tell you this, which you find out very early on in Aliens. There is another robot character.
Oh boy.
That, but you find it out very early.
Androids.
People have a thing about Android. Nancy, so you've seen this only the one time. as you left the theater, who was your favorite character and what was your favorite scene? And sub question: do you need to talk about Tom Skerritt more? Because this is what happened. The lights go on. We all stand up immediately. Tom Skerritt is so hot.
It was great.
That is exactly what she said.
So I wasn't sitting next to Sherry when we watched this, because if I had been, I would have just whispered it to her early on, like, wow, this is really kind of taken me by surprise. Like, he's really hot in this movie because he's filled out, like he's got a beard, like he's younger. He hasn't like moved on to his Top Gun mustache only super gaunt look, which he apparently has for like from then on to the rest of his life.
He definitely looks better
picket fences and stuff.
Yeah. So you're not really into like Steel Magnolias?
No. Again, this was a big surprise to me. So.
Even in Harold and Maude, he only has that stash because he's a cop.
Oh.
Yeah.
So anyways, like that whole thing aside, I mean, I really liked his character a lot too. I mean, I feel like as the captain of the ship, he was doing everything he thought he was supposed to do. He was following the orders he was given, which I know you were saying earlier you thought that this was kind of a commentary on workers' rights, but I kind of also think it's a commentary on like being in the military.
Sure.
You know, I mean, it's a different kind of working organization, and this movie came out like 4 or 5 years after Vietnam ended, so there could have just been this whole like idea of blindly following orders for things, and you know, what's the hierarchy and chain of command and all that stuff.
Oh, and I'm sure Wayland Corp was involved with the government with some of this stuff too. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't just
eventually you find out in the sequels that's the name of the company, Wayland Corporation.
Yeah,
I heard it also is in the Blade Runner universe apparently.
Yes, it is.
So okay, my unexpected attraction to Tom Skerritt aside, I mean, Ripley's my favorite character. How can she not be? She's amazing.
Me too.
Yeah, she's incredible.
Second favorite, probably Jones the cat, but only because, I mean, why not?
Oh man, if Harry Dean Stanton could have like read the cat's mind, he would have known the alien was behind him.
Right.
I mean, and actually, it was so endearing to see Sigourney Weaver's character with this cat. I mean, I know that sounds weird.
No,
like,
it is a huge part of the. I just think it adds.
It
so
humanizes
much.
her in a way.
It really does.
Yeah, but I mean, her in particular, because when they were first trying to like locate where did the alien run off to, and they had these weird motion detector things, and when the motion detector caught the cat, it's like they all realized, oh my god, oh that's right, we have our cat on the ship, and how do we keep the cat safe through all of it? And
I believe. I'm pretty sure I found this online like a long time ago, and I just thought of it. So I'm sorry I didn't research this right before we recorded, but I'm pretty sure there's like a story or a comic or a version of this movie that is like playing out this movie, but through the eyes of Jones.
It's from Jones' POV.
Awesome.
That's great.
Jones' point of view. And if there isn't, we're going to make it, right? Because
I'm sure there is.
Because that would just be so cool.
Movie.
But you're right. It humanizes them all, but also it also brings to the question, like, why did they bring this cat? Because no one says it's like their cat. Even Ripley, it's not like, hey, don't touch my cat at any point in the movie. It's just like the ship's cat.
Yeah.
Kind of like, and I think that it also might be similar to like why they had cats on like boats.
yeah, I thought the same thing.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, but they're in space,
right?
Like, is it? I mean,
it's even an homage to like
space herpes, or space rats,
to sailors and stuff,
right?
You know, Portuguese sailors, they love their cats. You know, they did because they helped get rid of rats.
Greatest seaman in the world. But anyway, I agree. I think Ripley, hands down, best character in this. You know, there's a reason why she is the driving force in the franchise, and
She's amazing.
She's a feminist icon.
She really is. I mean, and now a Disney princess. What was your favorite scene?
It's a tie between two.
Mm-hmm.
It's
hard.
It's a tie between the alien bursting out of John Hurt's abdomen.
Now, you knew that was going to happen, but you
I didn't know when and
how.
I just knew it was going to happen. And I think I maybe had seen just a tiny bit. Like, I knew he would end up on a table when it happened, but I didn't know when.
Was it ruined for you by the movie Spaceballs?
No, because I'd forgotten about that part. No, I'd forgotten all about that. So it's a tie between that scene and then the scene with Dallas in the air shaft, because I think at that point that's when you really get a first glimpse of the alien, like in its fuller form, its larger form, and that was a very intense
It's very
scene.
intense because she's just like, get out of there, like move, and he's like,
yeah. I mean, and he felt so much responsibility for everyone on the ship, and I mean, more or less knew he was probably walking into his own death. So it was great. It was yeah. I mean, because from then on out, I mean, obviously, Kane died. I mean, and that was just such a weird death, the whole experience. And then we didn't even see what happened to Harry Dean Stanton. We just knew he died after he saw the alien skin, like it had shed its skin, like after he picked that up. So, but it's like his body just kind of disappeared. You didn't see a big pool of blood or anything, but it was Dallas's character that you really see get killed. Yeah. So those are my two favorites.
That scene where, which I can't imagine seeing that in the theater in '79 and not knowing that was going to happen. I can't even imagine that would have been just crazy. Because by the time I watched it, I mean, I kind of knew what was going to happen. Although it's still crazy shocking, but they use real blood and guts and stuff, and the rest of the actors didn't know, and so that's their faces are so that's real shock. When all that blood and stuff flies on them, and it's real.
When they filmed it, they didn't tell the actors what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that he was going to die, but they didn't tell them how or what was going to happen. So their reactions to it bursting out and getting blood all over them and how they reacted, all natural.
Interesting. So you don't think John Hurt even knew?
He knew because he had to do the acting, but everyone who was supposed to react, they didn't know exactly what was going going to
Cool.
That's filmmaking.
So when they were doing the table read, it must have just had John Hurt's gonna die here, and then just left it vague.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
I always thought that was really cool.
That's neat.
Yeah.
What was your favorite scene, Sherry?
My favorite scene, while it's also hard, is the end when she's trying to get off the ship with Jones, and she's just you can tell she's trying to be so strong, but you can tell she's
racing against the clock.
You can feel her fear. It's subtle, but it's so just amazing how they how Ridley how they directed those scenes. You can feel it, her fear. Like I said, I teared up watching that scene even. And the end when she sees the alien, that goes into that, and then her just trying to get into that suit and without it coming after her.
Yeah.
I
think all those scenes that you guys mentioned would probably be in my top 5, but I'm gonna just to pinpoint another scene is I really think that the scene, as kind of gross as it is when the reveal of Ash and who he is.
Oh,
and that
that scene is really, really. I almost said that scene.
And that scene is crazy, and it's done really well, except for how the really terrible cut of they've defeated Ash, they've kind of knocked his head off, and then they're trying to wire him up so they can question him, even though they know they can't really hurt him. They have this very fake looking head, and then all of a sudden it cuts to Ian Holm with doing the classic head through the table to talk through it, and it just has this really terrible kind of look to it. But that whole scene is really cool.
Well, he was drinking that mysterious milk the whole time, and I'm like, what? Where is this milk coming from?
I think he was lubing up. It's this natural, WD-40.
Yeah.
It's his version of the oil, the Tin Man.
Oh, yeah. I don't really have anything else to add other than I really like this movie.
It's so good.
I'm so glad that Nancy finally got to watch it.
On the big screen, no less.
On the big screen. Sherry, I'm so glad that you have been... I was able to introduce this movie to you, and you have grown to love it as much as you have. Like I said, like throughout the whole series, I just really like the look of it, the kind of... some of the lore. I do want to actually correct myself. Yes... There's the 4 Alien sequels, and then there's also the 2 prequels, but there were also some Alien versus Predator movies that have come out where the alien is in it, but it has nothing to do with the normal lore other than the lore that was created in the comic book world where the aliens and the Predator live in the same universe, and at times they would battle each other, which is brought up in the second Predator movie, which I'm just totally going on a geeky tangent right now, but...
it's fun, though.
It's fun, though, and it looks cool.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so I'm glad to talk about that. So, I think that just about does it for Alien, and we're going to switch gears here to another female-led movie by more than just its name. Nancy's going to talk about Carrie.
All right, so the movie Matt wanted to talk about was from the year he was born, and the movie I'm going to talk about is from the movie I was born.
Right? Like, I thought that was so cool.
So this movie came out, Carrie came out in 1976. It was written by Stephen King, starring Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie, and the Great American Hero. With some very, very full, lush blonde curls. And I believe Amy Irving plays Sue. So Carrie starts, I'm going to guess it's springtime in high school. And I'm not sure if Carrie was also, I'm going to guess she was a senior.
She was like 16. I think it's her senior prom. So either she's a junior or a senior.
Okay, so she was a junior or a senior. And this movie opens up. Okay, before we dive into like scene by scene stuff, the overall story about this movie is she's a girl who has very little understanding of what's going to happen to her in her life. Like, she has very little understanding about like physiology. Her mother has raised her in an incredibly oppressive religious environment. The father is not in the picture, so there's no kind of balance in terms of, there's been no discussion of parenting styles and like what makes sense for Carrie White as she's growing up. So she's an insanely sheltered girl who, they have a little prayer room in a closet that Carrie's locked in a lot. Often she's locked in this closet by her evil mother. The movie opens during PE class, and the PE class ends, and they're in the locker room. And I'm going to tell everybody, I've never seen this movie when it wasn't on TV. So I'm seeing it for the first time, unedited. I'm seeing a lot of naked ladies in this movie in the locker room. This was a little surprising. But Carrie's taking a shower, and she gets her period for the first time.
She's like soaping herself up. She's enjoying her day.
Yeah, she's just, taking her, post volleyball shower, and she gets her period for the first time. And because her mother is such an evil bitch, she's never told her daughter what's going to happen to her with her body as she gets, goes through her teenage years. So
apparently she has no friends because they didn't tell her either.
She really doesn't have any friends, and this is obvious because of just how odd she is. But she completely freaks out. She thinks she's dying. She doesn't know what's going on with her. And like 30 girls in the locker room all make fun of her. No one helps her. They all just throw a bunch of pads and tampons at her and just make her feel so desperately humiliated. And the PE coach, played by the mom from 8 is Enough, she comes in and tries to, through the whole course of the movie, protect Carrie and help her. And she's just as confused, like all the girls, why is Carrie so upset about this? She didn't really understand that Carrie's home life was what it was. and that she just didn't understand what was going on with her, but she came in to help protect her and whatnot. Through this shower scene, we also see right away that Carrie has some special abilities. She is blessed with the gift of telekinesis, and with just the power of her mind, she can break stuff. She ends up breaking light bulbs and things kind of crashing around her. But she, upon first viewing of this movie, I was probably about 12 or so when I saw this movie for the first time. So I think it was in 7th grade when I saw it. And I was probably more afraid of Carrie's mother than anything else in this movie.
That's for sure.
I mean, Carrie's mother is just pure evil in this movie. Carrie gets home after her horrible, horrible day at school, and the mom blames her. And she's just like, Mom, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me things like this were going to happen to me? And her mom just assumes it's all that sin. It's all the sin that you brought upon yourself. And it just boggled my mind as a kid, and it freaked me out so much that a parent could act like this. Things continue and snowball throughout the movie as this opening event gets a lot of girls in trouble for treating her so poorly, but then makes a lot of girls, and one in particular, decide it's like their mission to take down Carrie White. So in addition to there being a super crazy evil mom in this movie, there's also storylines of intense bullying in this movie. In fact, the whole shower scene is basically all these girls bullying her because of how they're making fun of her.
Plug it up.
Because she just didn't understand what was happening to her body. So yes, this movie is really scary in the sense that there are crazy parents that could act this way. I mean, I don't mean to judge or whatnot, but I get the feeling that a modern day version of this could involve a lot of homeschooled kids, maybe.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to just make a blanket statement like that. That's not fair. But at the same time, the idea that someone's very specific worldview is imposed upon their children because they don't want their child to understand just basic biology. Like, I just don't get it.
I think that you'd have to, and I think what you're trying to say is that, especially with the modern times of today, you would have to live an extremely sheltered life. Like
Amish.
Well, Amish maybe, but to the point where you're like, you live on a, like, I imagine someone who like lives a very secluded lifestyle in a very rural area where you don't have cable TV or anything like that. It would be really hard to not experience, at least have the basic knowledge of physiology at the age that she was at.
Sure,
because we're not talking about
she's like
someone who's
16.
Like, we're not, and even in
and honestly, that's kind of late to be getting your first period.
It is.
Right.
It's still, I think, in the range of normal, but it is late. Yeah, that's for sure.
I also don't believe that there could possibly be any cultures that make women or young women feel like they're complete sinners just because they now start getting their period.
Well,
I just can't believe that there are any.
I believe the possibility that there might be, but I understand what you're saying, especially in times like these where there's so many resources to get information, and to share what you had said before, like, she obviously didn't have any friends because it's something that you would find out about just from your friends. Like, it's not something that you'd comfortably want to talk about, but you could know other girls.
Yeah.
Just that aspect of it, you would know something. But you were going to say.
I was just going to say that I don't know if you want to get into this part of it right now, but this is, my favorite horror movie. My dad, when I was probably about 12 too, Nancy, he said, you should watch this movie. My mom wasn't home.
Nice.
All right, Bob.
And I was like, okay. And I remember just at the same time being horrified, but just loving it so much. As someone who had been teased, went to a religious school my whole life until I went to college. Now, I never met anyone that was as bad as Margaret.
Carrie White's mom.
Yeah, but I could do a stretch, and when I watch it, I mean, it really brings out, like, every time, like, just this crazy, just pent-up anger I have for this kind of religious nonsense, like how she has. And it's just, she's so good in that role. I mean, she got Oscar nominated for it, so did Sissy Spacek, but I just identify with so much of that movie. Like, I mean, from that part of it to, you know, how Carrie feels a lot of the time. I think it's really actually an important movie for, like, young girls to watch. Like, I think it's from a different point of view. Like, you know.
Well, I actually, before we did this scary movie rewatch, I used to always say this was the scariest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. I mean, and I think it's more about how psychotic a parent can be. I mean, because that's really where the horror in this movie comes from. I mean, there are definitely things about the telekinesis that are scary. There are things that the girls do to Carrie that are scary, but it's what the mom does that is just the worst.
Yeah, and that stuff is just, like, for really Christian people like she is, it's like, oh, sex, it's evil. Men are evil. Your body is evil. Stephen King, he knows what he's talking about, man.
I'd like to add to what Sherry is saying. When we were doing the rewatch for this, Sherry was very animated with how she felt about the religious upbringing that Carrie had. Mm-hmm. She had a very intense feeling about it,
sure.
And she's.
I told you that.
I think she had to really kind of collect herself before we recorded, because it wouldn't be possible for everyone just listening to really fully understand if you didn't see.
Was there screeching?
There was pounding of the pillows and pounding, not her dirty pillows. But
oh God,
there was definite.
Every time I watch it, I just get so like pissed off. I just want to take my thumbs and push them into her eye sockets.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. That's
it's
more.
That's
more of the intensity. Yeah. Let it out. Let it out.
Well, like I said, I had a lot of years of having to listen to that kind of bullshit. So no offense to anyone that likes it.
Well, let me also just kind of go through a little bit more of like the timeline in this movie. So, this horrible event at the very beginning of the movie, the shower scene, which then leads to all the girls in that class getting into a lot of trouble. Like the gym teacher, Mrs. What's her name?
Oh, I just totally forgot her name.
I think it starts with a B. I'll look it up.
Miss Collins. Is it Miss Collins?
Miss Collins.
Yes.
Yes. So Miss Collins, she decides
I'm laughing at that.
She decides that all these girls deserve some really intense detention for treating Carrie the way that she did, and if they don't want to follow through with the detention, their senior ball tickets are revoked. And
no prom. No prom for you.
No prom. So all of them do it except this one bitch named Chris, who just is, she's dating John Travolta in the movie. She just is adamant that she doesn't think that they deserve this kind of punishment, and fine. So she won't get to go. And Miss Collins is just very determined to make these girls feel a little pain. And I thought that was right. I thought that was fair. But because she has pissed off this whole swath of girls, Carrie becomes an even larger target for them.
Right.
And Chris in particular has her sights set on humiliating Carrie as much as she possibly can. And one of the kinder girls in the group, even though she was throwing just as many tampons at her and pads at her and yelling at her just as much in the locker room scene, Amy Irving's character, Sue, she feels like, you know what? I feel bad for Carrie. And you know what? I think it'd be really nice if Carrie goes out with my boyfriend. Now, this whole thing I don't understand. I don't understand this whole, I'm going to ask my boyfriend Tommy, the captain of the football team, to ask out Carrie White. I don't really get this, and we can dive deeper into this when they finally show all the prom stuff.
Okay.
But she decides, I want Carrie to know she's not some leper. Can you please ask her out? Because she kind of gets the vibe that Carrie has a crush on him from one of their classes. Like, there's he writes a poem or something, and she goes, oh, that's beautiful. And the kids make fun of her, but Sue catches on like, oh, I think she likes my boyfriend. But she doesn't act jealous. She just feels like...
I think she has no way does she think that he would ever dump her for Carrie.
Yeah.
So she thinks she's safe. Like, that's not going to happen.
I also think the reason why she asks him to ask Carrie to the prom is because that is a lot easier for her to do than try and convince some other boy to ask her to the prom.
Yeah.
Now, we all, I don't think any of us have read the book
No.
Carrie, so maybe,
I've always wanted to, but
so maybe that's different. Maybe some of the details of it are different, but we're talking about the movie anyway, so who cares?
It is a little different.
But anyway,
I do know that.
I think it would have been a lot easier for her to just say, "Hey Tommy, don't take me to the prom. I was a total bitch to her. I don't deserve to go. Let's try and help her by trying to get her involved, and you take her." And and he's kind of like wishy-washy about it, and then he says, "I'll do it," and
it's sweet.
And I think that, and he treats her really nicely at the prom. I mean, he encourages her to go. He encourages her to dance. He gives her a little kiss,
which I don't understand that either.
Well, I think he's just trying to be. He's just trying to open her up. Now, at no point do I think that Carrie believes that he will leave Sue and go for her. I don't think at any point throughout the movie, I never get the vibe that he is dumping Sue and more interested in her.
Yeah.
And there would be a way better way that they could have approached this whole thing of him taking her to the prom, but then we wouldn't have the movie.
Yeah, I mean, because Carrie endured a lot of bullshit with her mom by even trying to get to go to the prom.
Yeah.
Like, her mom made her feel like a slut because she wanted to go to the prom, for Christ's sake. Like, she made her feel like she was a dirty girl and just all these horrible things.
Well,
and Tommy, in his, powder blue ruffly tuxedo, he pushed himself into the, like, come on, you gotta go. But she went. Like, Carrie had enough. She understood she was in this very pivotal point in her life. Like, I can't just keep listening to everything my mom is saying. Like, the things that my mom is saying, like, it doesn't square with things other people are telling me. Like, there's got to be some kind of the line of what's real has to be in between here somewhere, and it can't just be all this shit my mother has told me all these years.
Well, I love that scene so much where she's just like, just keeps throwing her back onto the bed with her telekinesis, and like, I'm like, how many kids watch this movie and are like, at some time or another, are like, man, I wish I could like do that. Just be like, shut up, mom. Well, leave me alone.
There's something that
or dad.
I and maybe it's because I probably watched it around this. Like, I think maybe we watched it together.
Probably.
We watched it around the same time, and I had always watched it on TV. Mm-hmm. Until I got older. I watched it uncut way before you did. But one scene that I never really remembered is, like, not even halfway through the movie, Carrie tells her mom, I can move things with my mind. And her mom is like, this is, you're evil. You have this, the devil has given you this power and everything like that. And I had never really caught on to that. So the only real reason she even goes to the prom is because her mom is afraid of her. And she is afraid of what she can do.
Yeah.
So when she's pushing her on the bed,
oh, yeah.
it's because she's like, what the hell? I'm super scared. And there's a couple other times where she does things in front of her mom that she sees, and she is afraid, which ultimately is why the conclusion of the movie happens.
Yeah.
But as far as Tommy and Sue go, I think that all their intentions were good. Like, I think that the way the movie portrays it, the intentions were good, but, you know, it would have been, you know, I think in modern times, if they were doing this on a modern day scale, they would have had more people in on it. Like, can we all just try and be nice to Carrie?
Yeah.
And then Chris, she would have been on her own, basically, trying to pull this shit off.
Yeah. Well, they get to the prom, and Chris had informed her best friend, PJ Souls, who we saw last week in Halloween, they were going to rig the prom king and queen contest so that Carrie and Tommy would win, because Chris wants to humiliate Carrie in the grandest of ways, including a bunch of pig's blood, and like the most famous scene of the movie probably ever, or maybe one of the most famous scenes of all horror movies.
It's way up there.
You know, they get on the stage. They get on the stage, and for 5 solid minutes, you know, Sue has, you know, high school proms. It was at like the gym. It wasn't at like a fancy hotel or anything. So she like goes over to school and like is peeking through the doors and just wants to see what's going on. And she's not there to cause any trouble or whatnot. And she sees that they win. They're getting ready to get up on the stage, all this great stuff. And she's standing along the side of the stage, and she starts to notice a rope that's like being shaken back and forth, and she follows the rope and realizes, oh my god, someone's underneath, there's something above, and she wants to try to alert Miss Collins, but Miss Collins is like, whoa, Sue, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be here, you're just causing problems or whatever. So Sue unfortunately gets kicked out, and then Chris is able to yank the rope and dump, I don't know, 6 gallons of pig's blood or something, just pours all over Carrie. Yeah. It's like the worst scene. I mean, it's just awful. Horrible. And then somehow the bucket's heavy enough, I guess, and it clips Tommy just right and it kills him.
It doesn't kill him.
I think it's knocked him out.
It just knocks him out.
All right. Well, yeah. I always assumed it killed him, but
did you know
God damn, that scene.
I know.
I mean, this is at least the second movie we're talking about with a high school prom. I mean, the Pretty in Pink prom is a little different than this one.
Just a little.
I mean, evil people in that one too, but
yeah.
Sissy Spacek was homecoming queen at her high school. So
nice. So she was used to getting crowned on the stage.
Isn't that
Hopefully
funny?
No pig's blood was
back
dropped
in Texas,
on her.
Yeah.
But goddamn, you know, I mean, talk about being like the greatest humiliation you could ever imagine. Like, here you think everything is wonderful. It's like there were like 3 minutes where she actually felt like a loved, wonderful girl in this whole movie. Like from the dancing with Tommy giving her a little kiss here and there, like when the camera was spinning around like a million miles per hour.
People were clapping for her, and she finally felt like she belonged to something. And you know, even at the dance, you know, people like one girl was commenting like, "Oh, I love your dress. Where'd you get it? Oh, I made it. Oh my god, I can't believe you made that." I mean, she actually interacted with these people in a way she had never interacted with them.
But no, the whole class decides to prove her mother freaking right. They're all gonna laugh at you.
Yep,
they're all gonna laugh at you.
That's what I said too. Well, and I don't know about Matt, but maybe this has happened to you, Nancy, where you've experienced not this exact situation, but something similar in your school days where you had people being nice to you and ended up that they were just trying to fuck with you and trick you, and I don't know if that ever happened to you, but it happened to me. And so, yet again, like, watching this...
No, it's very triggering.
Like, yeah, I mean, I feel her rage. Let's just say, like, when she just is like, I'm done, and she's just like, and she just lets go, and I get it.
It's really intense. And I don't know if this movie speaks to women in a way that it doesn't speak to men. Like, I don't know if Matt can feel any of the rage that, like, Sherry and I can feel through this movie.
Oh, I might not have been in the same shoes, but I understand. I mean,
guys get bullied too. Yeah.
What she was going through was fucked up. I mean, everything that she goes through in this movie, you know, from her mom to the kids at school to the principal who calls her Cassie the whole time.
I know.
And even the teacher, when she compliments Tommy on the poem, kind of is like,
yeah,
like, I can't believe Carrie has an opinion, and her opinion, oh my god, she calls his poem beautiful? What the hell? I mean,
she's so dismissed.
She's dismissed, disrespected, and I mean, it's done so well in the movie to illustrate that, you know, and the movie just, it never gets slow. Like, it's constant this whole time. The only time you ever see anyone that's kind of nice to her is Mrs. Collins, who even kind of doesn't understand. And then Sue and Tommy. And then everyone else that you kind of see, like, maybe kind of be nice to her, it's all questionable. It's like, it's all just the circumstances they're being nice. But they don't still know anything about her, and nor does anyone care to try and know anything about her. And that's what a lot of bullying is they see people who feel shitty about themselves decide, I want to feel bigger than someone else, so I'm going to, even though I don't know anything about them, I'm going to shit on them, and, you know, for whatever reason.
And they already have power because they're popular, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And, you know, talking about Sissy Spacek, who I love, who is an amazing actress, I was reading when she was prepping for this role, and on set, she told all the other actors that I really want to work with you guys. I'm excited to be here, but I want you to know that I'm going to avoid all of you so I can get into my character, you know, and I'm not going to like socialize and stuff like that. So don't take offense. You know, we'll hang out after, which I think is really is interesting.
She like intentionally isolated herself.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we talked about that in the Stand By Me episode. How, you know, or I think it was Stand By Me episode. How Kiefer Sutherland didn't want to be around all the other boys because he knew they were supposed to be.
He had to be mean to them.
He had to be mean to them and everything. So I mean, as a device, that is like such a great way as an actor. She was 25 when she filmed this.
Oh my god, she looked 16 though. I mean,
I know. Because I mean, I think Coal Miner's Daughter came out just a few years after.
Yeah, just a little bit after.
Just a little bit after. Yeah. I mean, and that she's obviously older. Anyway,
I like
fucking sucks.
Yeah,
and I understand, and I might not, you know, from a male point of view, I might not necessarily know the exact term. I mean, none of the guys I know had their period and got shit thrown at them, but just from a standpoint of like how you just shouldn't be shitty to people.
Yep.
Yeah, you can replace it with anything.
You can replace it with anything.
Well, and let's just say, like, with modern times now, I mean, she had telekinesis where she was able to exact her revenge. There's guns now.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can replace. You have to do for modern times and for like realistic scenarios is just replace her telekinesis with assault rifles.
So which women don't usually use, but yes,
you're bringing up an exact thought that I had when we were done watching this movie. Is I was trying to think about the two movies that we were watching, and you have like this real badass kind of hero with Ripley in Alien. And then you kind of have this badass hero in Carrie, and I thought, man, I really don't know if it's right to illustrate her as a hero in a sense that her way of kind of being the hero that everyone kind of cheers for is she just murdered her entire class.
I wouldn't say she's a hero. I can empathize with her. You know, I don't think what she does is right, but I can empathize why she would get just so why she's so messed up.
And that's my point is that you can't really talk about what she does at the end of this movie as being right. It's hard to not be like rooting for her as she just demolishes the prom and sets everything on fire.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of innocent people.
But at the same time, it's like you don't want to. We just don't want to. You want to glorify that.
Yeah, you don't want to necessarily say that they had it coming because, like we said, there's a lot of innocent people that were there. But at the same time, you understand why she did it.
Right. Exactly. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about how much you want to talk about the ending, but that part, I mean, that had to happen because, like, when her mom tried to kill her. So it's like, that was self-defense.
Yeah, I mean, but the actual ending part, like, I still don't understand how the house collapses in on itself.
Well, because at that point, Carrie has already died. So what is making the house collapse? It's not her telekinesis. She's dead.
Maybe she was still dying.
I don't know. The whole house collapsing on itself thing, I always thought was kind of weird.
But is she dead, though?
Oh, yeah, she is.
She's dead.
P.S. How many times have I seen that movie and I still jumped at the end part with her hand?
That part scared me.
Oh my god, it still scares me. That part, it's like, so great.
So when I was growing up in my bedroom, I had this like long panel of windows that were really skinny, and it had these curtains on them, and to, like, open and close the window, you had to, like, crank it open like an old car door.
Yes,
you had that kind of crank. After I saw this movie for a long time, every time I'd have to like stick my hand underneath the curtain to like close the door, like I kept thinking, oh my god, is Carrie's arm gonna come pop out and like, grab me? Like that's how intense the idea of her arm emerging out from underneath.
It gave me chills.
Scared me
It gave
so
me chills
much
when we rewatched it. It gave me chills.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, and of course, she's having this. Poor Sue is having this dream, a nightmare.
Oh, she's traumatized.
But why don't we go ahead into favorite characters?
Well, okay.
Or unless you want to say something else.
I had a couple things I wanted to point out. A couple random facts that I thought were kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple of those too.
One non-random fact: Nancy Allen, who plays Chrissy Hargensen, other than being totally bitchy, totally evil, and like the epitome of like the worst bully that you could possibly find. She's fucking hot in this movie.
Yes, she is. Hey, John Travolta knows he had a heat wave on. He's like over there.
I'm sorry.
I know. She is. I brought it up before you did.
And then, after this movie, she married the director, Brian De Palma.
Oh, she was married to Brian De Palma.
Did she ever do anything else?
Yeah, she's in RoboCop. She's in the RoboCop series. She plays RoboCop's partner.
Never saw it.
She has like shorter hair and a little tough kind of cookie there.
So you must like the scenes where she's under the thing and they keep focusing on her licking her lips before she yanks the pig's blood down?
Sure. In regards to the pig's blood, when they go to the pig farm to get the blood, why are they using a sledgehammer?
Yeah, what is going on there?
I mean, no,
that
axe.
Scene is so
they
weird.
Use a sledgehammer. I mean, can you get more brutal?
I picture that what they actually use when filming this is like Caro syrup that's dyed red.
Yeah,
because it had that
thick
thick consistency.
Yeah.
Speaking of Caro syrup, before you do your next one, unless I'm going to steal it. You know the sound, which you guys might find familiar, when she's like moves her eyes and then something moves and she like throws it across the room. It's the quick violin. It is the psycho violin. It is the same sound, which is
nice.
So cool.
The other thing, when the whole like Carrie snaps, blood poured on her, and she snaps, and she's looking around, and then all of a sudden the telekinesis goes crazy. She has like these crazy bug eyes that never go away, like all the way until she gets into the bathtub at her house. She must have needed so many eye drops.
Oh, probably.
I mean, her eyes were, it was like she never blinked. It was crazy.
Yeah.
The other, and you mentioned something also. Let's talk just a little bit about the scene. Like, blood pours on her. It goes, there's no music or anything. It's all quiet. There's just, and then all you hear is the bucket, like it hits Tommy. You don't. He kind of like does an ow thing and falls over, and then you just hear the bucket kind of swinging. And then PJ Soul's character, whose name I can't remember because it's not really important, she starts laughing, which I think is real. But then you start hearing other people laughing. But one of the cuts that they show is Mrs. Collins laughing, and I don't think that's real.
It didn't happen.
I think what happens is PJ Soul's character is laughing, maybe a couple of the other girls, but no one else is laughing.
Yeah, no,
I think it's all in Carrie's head
because of her mom.
Because of her mom.
Yeah.
And then that's when she
Yeah,
snaps.
I mean, they show that like kaleidoscope cam, and she's
and it's got the cuts of all the things that have been said to her.
There's just no way.
You can trust me, Carrie. You can trust me.
I'm so sorry, Cassie.
There's just
I'm so sorry, Cassie.
There's no way.
No. And then when after her mom has stabbed her and she's crawling on the floor, and her mom's like chasing her with the knife and this craziness, then Carrie starts using her powers to stab her mom. Her mom has the most crazy orgasmic screams. It's like, as the knives are going into her, I was just like, what the hell is going on, Piper Laurie?
Wasn't one of the things that she got stabbed with like a potato peeler?
Yeah,
a potato
that
peeler,
was in her heart.
like a spatula, like a metal spatula. It was pretty crazy. In regards to Piper Laurie, after she did a movie in 1961, she actually retired from acting.
Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, Rosemary's Baby. After Rosemary's Baby,
Well,
a little later.
She
retired from maybe it wasn't Rosemary's Baby. I forget it. She retired from acting when Brian De Palma, like to convince her to do this movie, they had to tell her it was a dark comedy, and to this day she thinks it's a comedy.
She crazy.
I thought that, she's so great in Twin Peaks. I thought that she thought it was up until they started filming, and then she realized it wasn't. Read, really? Huh,
no.
Interesting.
I read that she...
Interesting.
She still, to this day, she still kind of thinks it's a dark comedy. And then one of the last things that I'm going to say is two David Lynch connections in this.
Yeah.
Piper Laurie is in Twin Peaks.
Oh, I know the other one is Sue's mom.
No.
Sue's mom is in a David Lynch something or other.
You're right. Not Sue's mom.
Yeah.
I think
Sue's
it's
mom.
Sue, isn't it? Is it
Sue's
no, it's
mom.
not Sue. Is it Sue's mom?
Yes. I saw that.
But that's not what I was going to say.
Okay, so there's three.
The art director on this movie, Carrie, who is also Sissy Spacek's husband, Jack Fisk, is one of David Lynch's oldest and best friends.
Oh.
So.
Well, and a lot of what I read, too, is that a lot of the... This came out right before Eraserhead, right? A lot of the...
Eraserhead took a long time to make, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. A lot of the shots where you can tell, he shot it in reverse and then played it back so that it was, a dreamlike quality.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Lynch was very inspired by him doing that. So, you see that a lot in his stuff.
So Nancy, you
interesting.
can't get away from it. David Lynch is everywhere. He's coming. You want to like him. You really do. Anyway, that was the last thing I was going to say. Favorite characters?
She's only seen Lost Highway. Just give her some time. Just to watch Blue Velvet.
I plan on watching Twin Peaks.
And
someday.
Twin Peaks, too.
Miss Collins is my favorite character.
She's great.
I like her a lot. I would have said younger Nancy would have said Sue was my favorite character.
Yeah.
But watching it now and seeing just how much she was part of the initial shower attack, I was like, nope, it's not going to be Sue. I don't care if Sue pawns off her boyfriend on Carrie. I don't care all these things that Sue does. Miss Collins will be my favorite character.
I think that scene with that whole scene at the beginning is so just.
There's blood
so
everywhere.
bizarre.
There's blood on like in the scene, when they're in the principal's office and they do a cut to Miss Collins' shorts.
she's
It's
got
there's
blood
blood all over her shorts.
she was
There's
grabbing her.
blood all over Sue's sweater. I'm like, oh my god, I do not remember this from other times I've watched this movie.
Or from your own experiences when it first happened to you, not me.
God.
Jeez.
When I think about that scene, you have to also remember, they're supposed to be teenagers. There's this whole, peer pressure aspect of it. And there's a lot of kids that we don't see in this movie that are not main characters.
You're not trying to mansplain period etiquette, are you?
No.
Okay.
I'm trying
just want to make sure.
I'm trying just to say
No.
I'm just trying to say that sometimes kids do stupid shit without thinking.
Of course.
And sometimes they do it because the crowd is doing it.
It was very
And then
excessive.
Groupthink happens.
Groupthink happens,
Yeah.
and they probably and you can almost, not that it's an excuse for the bad behavior.
Get the pitchforks out.
They all deserve to get detention for the week.
Apparently, the book was written. The book was written in 1974, but it was set in 1979, so it truly was a period piece.
You're right. It was a period piece.
So, Sherry, who's your favorite character?
It's Carrie. That was apparently, it was either Sherry or Carrie was going to be my name, but my parents decided on Sherry, so it almost could have been my name, too.
Do you think this movie had any influence on that?
I bet your dad saw it in the theater.
Maybe, I don't know.
And he's like, oh man, if I have a daughter someday, I better make her watch this.
If we name her Carrie,
I don't think so.
she might be able to move things with her mind, which would have made cleaning a lot easier.
It would have. No, but, I mean, she's of course a flawed character, but I like her the most. Other than John Travolta.
You
He's
gotta
the
be
worst.
kidding me.
No, I'm
He's
kidding.
the worst.
And
Apparently
he just
he has
smacks her around like twice. It's like no big deal. Drinking his Pabst, like spilling it all over himself.
I told you never to call me that.
Yeah, he's
Apparently,
awful.
he was filming this movie on like his days off from Welcome Back, Kotter.
That makes sense.
Stolen character.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character, Matt?
I really like Carrie. I think that's like a clear, obvious answer for anyone who. You're watching a movie called Carrie. I actually kind of like Tommy.
Sure.
Tommy
He's
is
very
not-
sweet.
and he's not. He's not perfect. But
He's kind to her, though.
He has a good heart, though. You can tell. He's
I mean-
not like a. Yeah.
I mean, and he does really.
He's just
everything,
a victim of all
He
this.
really does everything right. Mm-hmm. He compliments her. He tries to make her experience at this prom, a good experience, so she's not traumatized by it. Too late. It didn't.
Yeah.
He did everything he was supposed to do.
Yeah, he had no idea they were going to do this. In fact, that's another great part of the scene.
He's
Is
like,
the blood spills down, and then he, some of it splashed on him too. But I mean, he's just beyond angry.
pissed.
He's so
yeah.
mad.
He's very upset. Yeah.
So I think Tommy's a good character. I mean, yeah, I never would have picked Sue. I never would have really picked Sue to be
A favorite?
my favorite. Mrs. Collins, I think, is great, but there's something about her that it doesn't, I think that she's probably of the three people who are trying to help Carrie in this movie. I mean, it's basically, you gotta like Miss Collins, but
I would love to know if anyone thinks that Mrs. White is the best character in this movie.
I think that she's a great.
We wouldn't have a
character.
movie without a character.
I think
yes.
she's a great
Yeah.
character. If you were to pick like a villain as a great character, oh my god, she is so good in this movie. Definitely deserving of an Oscar nomination, and definitely scary. I mean, I didn't know anyone growing up that had a mom as bad as her.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe it's not religion. Maybe it's like treats them shitty for other reasons.
Sure, just like overly strict for no real reason.
Overly strict, or a drug addict, or whatever. I mean, there are fucked up moms out there.
Sure.
But that put their kids in terrible situations. But
This is purely religion-based,
She
though.
is freaking scary,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that also has to do with like Sherry. You went to a Catholic school or a Christian school, so you got to see this aspect of it. Where Nancy and I didn't really live in a religious household at all.
I didn't
really
necessarily
know that
live in a
many.
religious household, but my school was religious.
Right. But like I knew some kids who lived in religious houses, but it was never as prevalent
Oppressive.
or
I mean,
as
it's definitely
oppressive,
crazy extreme. Yeah.
or that we would have experienced. I mean, so you would have probably been, of the three of us, the one to see that in real life the most. But man, Piper Laurie just does a great job scaring the hell out of all of us in this movie.
Yeah, my grandma used to call them holy rollers. People like that. She is. Yeah.
Holy rollers.
Do you want to do favorite scenes?
I'll start. My favorite scene is probably... Okay, I'm going to pick two. My favorite, not really favorite, but funny favorite, is a scene when they are all in detention and they're all working out in the tiny shorts. Because...
it's funny.
Because it's funny and Chris is hot. But...
At Bates High, another Hitchcock reference.
There you go.
Homage.
And then, but my actual favorite scene is... I really like the scene right before she goes to the prom and she's throwing her mom on the bed.
Yeah.
That is like... That is just kind of that badass scene where it's like, if you didn't read the book or know anything about this movie and knew how it was about to end, like, you'd see that and be like, oh man, she's giving her mom the business now, throwing her on the bed. And I just really like the interaction that she has with her mom at that point in that scene too. You know, she's like fighting her to the point, and her mom is just like, you see this great acting from her mom trying to convince her not to go and coming with all these excuses. Oh, we'll pray together. Oh, this will be so great. And she's like, I'm going. Yeah, and just throws her on the bed. That was a great scene.
What about you, Sherry?
My favorite scene is the end when Carrie comes home and her mom confronts her, but before she confronts her, she's hiding behind that fucking door, creepy as all get out.
Yes, that door scene is
oh my god.
She looks like a ghost almost.
Yeah, she's got that.
They lit her up really well.
Well, and then like she turns on, if you're not paying attention, she turns on the bathroom light and like she's so far over on the screen where if you're watching her in the bathtub, if you're in the theater, you're not even seeing what they just showed you.
No. It's great. So that's my favorite one. The mom's confronting her and that whole thing. I think it's done very well.
I want to give a little shout out to all the candles that were lit.
Right.
In that scene. It reminds me of like any sex scene that ever happened in a TV show called Smallville. Because it's like, they always have like 500 candles, and you got to feel for the poor PAs that have to light them all. And that was what I was thinking when I saw all these candles. And I'm like, oh, this is like Smallville. But my favorite scene is after the blood's been poured on her at the prom, and then she just loses it.
That's my second favorite. Yeah,
torching everything at the prom. I mean,
yeah.
I always, you know what? It's funny is when we did the rewatch, it felt like it went by really fast. I always imagined it taking like a lot longer. Like she did more stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I felt this, and I felt that everything from when the blood was poured down on her to the very end went much faster than I ever remember it. It seemed like there was... And maybe it was because when I was a kid, I probably watched it on TV and there was commercials, so things got spaced out anyways. Yeah, but still, I mean, it actually happens really quickly. Yeah. I thought that the whole confrontation with her mom back at the house was a lot longer than it actually was.
Yeah. Mrs. Collins gets it, and then we start seeing toilet paper ads or something like that.
Exactly. It's all
broken up. Or
Tampax ads. There you go. That would make more sense. But no, I mean, like once she starts turning and using her powers, and then like coming off the stage, and oh god,
that's her walk off the stage with the fire behind her.
Yeah, and it's like not that it's not that she deliberately set fire. It's that she had the fire hose go off, and then that kind of just. That lit some, the electricity kind of triggered it all, and
it's just so heartbreaking how that's what's great about this movie is just how she's starting to feel good about herself. She's better, and then it just all goes to shit. You're like, oh, this could have been prevented.
Yeah, I mean,
kids are assholes.
Kids are assholes.
Yeah, I think it's just very important in that way. I think it's just like it's really a commentary on it, Well,
like I said, modern times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just think about how much, if you really think about it, it's so much easier to bully now with cell phones, social media, cyberbullying.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, now if the period scene in the shower were to happen today, everyone would have their phones out, videoing it and like putting it on YouTube. I mean, that's how how it would have been worse.
That disgusts me.
Yeah. So
just the idea of that's horrible.
Do you know how much Stephen King got paid for the rights to his book?
How much?
$2,500. And he doesn't regret it because it was his first, foray into film, and yeah,
it was the first book that he had written, and he actually likes this movie more than his book.
He thinks it was dramatized better, yeah.
But Carrie was different. The person that he based Carrie on supposedly had a different look to her. I think she was. It wasn't. He didn't picture Sissy Spacek playing this character, and then he saw her play.
I wonder if he pictured someone more attractive.
I think less attractive, like frumpy kind of looking, is what I had read. But
she's a daywalker. She's great. It came out even came out in November of '76 too.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
Carrie, the movie Carrie, and I were born around the same time.
And when we were talking about Oscar nominations, what ran that category? Even though Piper and Sissy got nominated for supporting and Best Actress, was Network. It won a ton of Oscar, and Faye Dunaway beat out Sissy, I think, but anyway, or maybe it was Piper, but.
There's some intense stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I agree with both of you. I think we all kind of agree that this is a movie that might kind of be aged by the style and by the fact that it doesn't keep up with technology.
And the powder blue tuxedo.
The powder blue tuxedo was pretty...
With ruffles.
Yeah, that was pretty...
And his hair.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, the 70s, it's great. It's popular, too, those looks, a lot of them right now, so.
Yeah, that's not where I was going with this.
Oh, man. You were gonna talk about how the hazing that they did to the girls in Dazed and Confused was a lot like this bullshit.
It was a lot like this,
God.
But at least in that one, they were like, hey, you got through it, don't worry, come and have drinks with us. I just think, though, that from, even though it's kind of dated in certain ways, that you're both right. This is a movie that kids today should watch just to be like, don't fucking bully people because it's messed up. But it also reminds me of Steve Buscemi's character in Billy Madison, who in Billy Madison, Steve Buscemi plays a guy that when Billy Madison was in high school, he bullied. So Billy Madison starts feeling bad about all the kids he bullied when he was younger. So he starts calling them on the phone, and he gets a hold of Steve Buscemi. And he's like, hey man, I treated you pretty crappy in school, and I just wanted to say I'm sorry. It wasn't cool of me, and I'm trying to be a better person. And Steve Buscemi's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, man. And then all of a sudden it cuts to Steve Buscemi, and he grabs some lipstick, turns, and there's a list of people to kill on the wall. And one of them is Billy Madison. He crosses it off and then takes the lipstick and puts the lipstick on and just kind of sits back. But not like that's the same, but just the idea, you never know when there's a Steve Buscemi out there, when you get older, who might, slash your tires someday or something. Yeah. So... hey kids, don't bully.
Yeah. I think any age, bullying at any age is
not a good idea. Even adults bully people.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but people want to feel, it's easy to make someone feel shitty if you feel shitty about yourself. Whatever. It's not like we're trying to psychoanalyze bullies or anything, but it's pretty prominent in this movie.
Yeah. The only other comment I want to make about both of these movies combined is that as soon as we were done watching Alien, I was asking them if PG&E would have cut off the power on the planet that they landed on because it was so windy that day.
That made me laugh.
We here in the Northern California had recently experienced PG&E during blackouts, and it was stupid. And yeah,
because of the wind. Now, if you were let's do a quick comparison of these two movies. Who would you think was the stronger female character, Ripley or Carrie?
Ripley.
Oh, it's Ripley.
But
it's not Carrie's fault necessarily. Plus, she's younger.
But Carrie has superpowers.
She does, but
she dies.
There's different definitions of strong, right?
There are.
Well, I mean, you could say that she ultimately overcame what her mother was doing to her.
Yeah.
And she overcame all the bullies.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think she's strong.
She could have mentally just thrown the alien away.
She could have.
Yeah.
She could have.
But I think that,
mental strength, though, for sure, I think
that Ripley is definitely I think if we're talking about, stronger, character as far as writing is concerned, Carrie is a stronger character just because of the development of her character and how you follow her story, whereas it didn't need to be Ripley. It could have been Dallas that was the hero.
Well, and it's different too because Carrie is just so focused on her. I mean, it's the name of the movie. So, yeah. I mean, while Sigourney Weaver is the main character in Alien, she's not
You don't really know that right when it starts.
No, you don't.
You're right. You're right. You're both right. You don't. It's not until people start getting knocked off by the alien.
Yeah.
And her having to remind Ash, excuse me, dude, I'm the HBIC here, okay?
Yeah.
I was the one who was able to... I was the one who should have made the call if we let them in or not.
That's right.
Right. Well, and it's another thing other than the chest burster. It's man, when you watch that movie in 79, it's you weren't, nobody knew who she was. You didn't think that she was going to be the lone one left, It's very interesting.
I think we're about ready to wrap this up, but I just want to say that I think if they ever remade this movie, Mrs. Collins...
They remade Carrie?
Well, if they remade it if they remade a good version of this...
watch it.
Mrs. Collins could easily be played by Joan Cusack.
She could.
Do that.
She could play her.
She's definitely a Mrs. Collins as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, if you want to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're into that.
Spotify. Rate us on Apple Podcasts.
Please rate us. Give us honest ratings, but
5 stars.
5 stars.
Leave us a review if you'd like.
If you want to message us and say hey, I didn't like that, or maybe we'll get a poll going on whether what Carrie did was right or not, or whatever. You're not going to know that stuff unless you follow us. So we want to thank all you guys for listening. We want to thank Sherry for being a guest again.
Thank you.
We always enjoy you and joining us. And this is Matthew.
I'm Nancy.
And we will see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
I told you never to call me that!